Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Ray. If you're new to the channel, glad to see you. Hopefully we'll have some information that you can apply to some of your own projects. We're still working on the cab with the Wild Willys here. What we're going to do today is we have these big holes in the floor that the seats and whatnot used to cover up. As you can see these holes here, we're going to put a plate, a 14 gauge on those. We're going to try to stiffen that up a little bit more and weld that in because that's where our seats are actually going to be mounted to. Instead of the way they used to be mounted with these rails in here, we'll actually be bolting these seats down. This area here, as you can see, is like a pocket. So what we're going to do in the future is we're going to cut this bottom out, put a new bottom in, and then where the tunnel area is here, we're going to box that in. So that'll actually be a storage compartment. We'll do it on both sides. So also what we're going to do is after we get this covering on here, we're going to cut this hole out here for access to get in there. And I'll pick up a couple piano hinges and we'll put that there with a little latch. So it'll be an area where we can use it. Put tools or whatever up underneath there, whatever we're wanting to carry around, is just a little bit more added space. So let's dive into it. I got a couple pieces of 14 gauge here I found that just happened to be the right. Okay, hon. Teresa asked me to open the other door on the other side here so she can, there you go, film from the other side. So going through the scrap pile, and I found a couple pieces of 14 gauge that I think will fit pretty good. We'll just lay them in there like that. I believe that'll work out just fine. So what I'll do is I'll clean up the edges here, clean this edge up a little bit with the grinder, and we'll start tacking that in place. Okay, as you can see here, again, we have a bunch of damage here where this has been crushed down. So I'm going to try to pick this up a little bit, see if we can get something to weld to it. It looks like somebody's had something welded to it already once before, and they just went over it because there's some welds here that's been cut and broke, and there's some also on the other side. So I'm thinking that at one time somebody had a piece of something over these already. that's probably good enough. Now I'm gonna take and clean this up a little bit. Okay, being that I need to pull that tight to be able to weld it, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut this doorway access out here. That way I can reach in there with my clamps and clamp that tighter so I can get a better weld on it. So if you want to come over on this side, Teresa, I'll get this marked up and we'll cut these holes, or this hole through on this side anyway. I'm just going to take a couple of my squares here, and the thickness of this is about 3/4. I think if I just hold it flush to the top there, like that, I can mark the bottom side. Just slide that over a little further. There, that gives us a nice parallel line there. And then, this is about the same as this one. Yeah, they're about the same. So I'll just go ahead and do the same thing on the bottom. I'll just lay this on this flat piece right here, like this. And then what I'm going to do is this seam right here, I'm going to come over about 3/4 from that seam, which again is about the same thickness as this. And now I'm going to do the same thing. We have another seam right here in the back, just like that. It's a spot welded seam. So I'll do that right here also, like that. Okay, and that'll be our access hole when we're done for that little toolbox area. So now I'll get the cutter. And we'll cut that out. that's pretty good. We can probably push this down like that when we get that far. All right, I think we'll go ahead and weld that in. Okay, now, being that the 14 gauge is a little bit thicker than our 18 gauge probably is what the body metal is, what I do when I make my weld is I weld more so on the 14 gauge and then just kind of bring it down just a little bit so I don't burn through on the thinner metal. So a good share of my weld is actually on the 14 gauge on the edge of that, and then it's welding onto it where it's penetrating good, but I'm not burning through it. When I get this welded, Teresa will come over here and she'll show you the spot welds that I have here. So, back on there. Stick my knee on that, hold it down a little bit more. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now what we'll do, I'm not going to show all the welding, I don't want to bore you, but what we're going to be doing is we'll weld this around so it's continuously welded. And then our seats that we have are kind of like a, not really a dune buggy type seat, but they're kind of a halfway between a dune buggy seat and a medium race type of seat. They're a poly, and they have the inserts up in the bottom of them for, I think it's like 6 bolts. So what we'll do is we'll set these in here with the back just about touching the back of the cab, and then we'll mark the holes, and we'll be drilling those holes actually through this 14 gauge, and then the bolts will come up from the bottom. So that's another reason why we cut this out, so we have the ability to reach in here and put the bolts up through the bottom too, when we'll use some nice big thick heavy washers. So that's what we're going to be doing in the future. But like I said, I'm not going to bore you with welding. You probably know how to weld by now if you're watching the channel. If not, you're probably practicing well, and everybody needs practice. You know, nobody's perfect at the welding, and the nice thing about it is when we're all done, we're just going to take a flapper disc and dust it off, and it'll look good. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. If you tune in again, we're going to try to put out a segment every day. If you haven't noticed, we're trying to get more out there so you guys can enjoy our builds as much as we do, and hopefully our builds that we're doing is helping inspire you to get your project going. And tell us what you're working on. Leave us some comments. And if you want to throw a picture or two on there, that's fine. Show us what you're working on. We enjoy looking at other people's builds as much as we do our own builds. So don't be afraid to share. And if you see something that looks like you would do a little more differently one way or another, share your comments. We're always looking for new ways of doing things. And get out in that garage and get your projects going. We'll see you tomorrow.